Okay, here we go again. The last week in September. My last chance to rant in the summer. Here's the playing music. You are listening to KPCA LP, Petaluma, California, at 103.3 FM and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. And this is the Midnight Skeptic. The views of the Midnight Skeptic are not, repeat, not necessarily the views of KPCA or any of its affiliates. Okay, this is the Midnight Skeptic Show number 88, and it'll be broadcast on this coming Sunday, the 2nd of October, and right today it's Tuesday, 9/27, September 27th. And the views of the Midnight Skeptic, first of all, I am proudly woke. I'm a liberal, progressive, a libtard, if that's what the GOP MAGA heads want to call me. I admit that. And I am compassionate, accepting, and of all types of people, as long as people don't hurt each other. Okay. The views of the Midnight Skeptic are not the views of Petaluma Community Access and blah, 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 except that I do, in fact, know that most of them share my views, if not all of them. And my views, it goes without saying that my views are the correct views. Okay. And, that all out of the way, shout-outs. Anchor.fm, which gathers up Spotify, which I actually am on, and they disseminate it to the rest of the world. The European Union, I have a half a dozen to 10 viewers there. 2 in Australia, 2 in New Zealand, 1 actually in Russia, according to the latest Anchor.fm metrics, and then 3 up in Canada. Okay. Locally, Nariman and Keith and Cody, Tom and Nancy, Tim Conrad, and down in Tiburon, Dennis and Megan. Dennis is my audio engineer that is on call. He can take over my computer remotely and fix whatever is needing to be fixed. But I haven't had to do it lately because he helped me fill out my notebook here about what to do with various things. When various things crop up, I am quite low tech. I am of that generation that did not grow up with any of these things. I still like to write old-fashioned letters. Go figure. Okay, Sebastopol, Rich and Kathy Berger, and Katati, Kevin and Lori. I enjoyed sharing a beer with you yesterday, Kev. Yvonne Santos down in San Francisco, Pacifica, Stan and Kathy Gustafson, and I've neglected to write this down, but there's a lady that Stan told me about that is the epitome of progressiveness in Pacifica. I'm not going to look for her name right now, but she knows who she is. Okay, Sacramento, Dave and Rosita Takach. I hope you're feeling better, Rosita. And then Mickey Huff, the godfather of Project Censored. Please, all my listeners, go to projectcensored.org and sign up for their newsletter. And be sure to look for Project Censored's 2002 book in your local bookstore. It's just chock-a-block full of the news that didn't make the news. Okay, Down in L.A., Jackie Kolar and her two daughters, Samantha and Melanie, they listen in occasionally. Down in Arizona, my brother Brandon and Mina and their daughter Andrea, my niece, she's a nurse there, and her husband Tim, who I got a like this week on my announcement of what I'm going to be talking about. Thank you. Thank you, Tim. Booyah! He's retired Marine Corps. And they're three little tourists. Okay, in Arkansas, Shannon Reed, Florida, Nelson and Alice Lydell. Nelson and Alice, you guys are right on the bullseye of Hurricane Ian. And Amelia Beamer up in the Edgewater area, it's going to exit Florida, hopefully, but maybe it's going to hang a left and kind of go up into Georgia. Either way, you're going to get it big time. Stay safe, hunker down, keep plenty of water in your house. Up in North Carolina, the Raleigh-Durham area, Dr. Dave. And last, out on Long Island, Geraldine Goldfinger. Okay. And I promised now a couple of my listeners and viewers on YouTube that I would start off every show with some good news and try to concentrate on getting good news into my show. I don't like being an angry person, and I'm not. There are certain things that do make me angry, but I don't want to sound like it. I'm not a negative Nelly all the time, and I try not to be. But anyway, I'm going to start off every show with good news and end every show with good news. Okay, here's a great quote from, are you ready for this? Lisa Simpson. Yes, that one, the cartoon character. And I don't know who, well, one of the writers of the show put this quote into her mouth, but it fits. She's kind of this way. And here's the quote. If you're afraid that books might change someone's thinking, you're not afraid of books. You're afraid of thinking. All right. Very good, Lisa. Okay, good news. California Free Thought Day is on Sunday, October 9th. In Sacramento at the Capitol building. There's out on the lawn and parking lot in front of the Capitol building. They're going to set up tents for this and that organization. A bit of entertainment, a bit of snacks of various kinds. It's a National Free Thought Day. California Free Thought Day is an agglomeration of organizations, and this is the 21st annual celebration of non-religious good thinking. All right. The humanism, secularism, atheism, agnosticism, science, societal justice, social justice, all of that. All of those people that MAGA heads hate will be there. So, especially the religious right hates free thinkers, Free Thought Day. Okay, great news. Ella Scott, a Texas high school student, started a banned books club to defend her right to learn in school. She's a junior at Vandegrift High School in the Leander Independent School District. That's right outside of, God, I wrote it down somewhere. I think it's, okay, I'll think of it in a minute. Okay, Fort Worth, Dallas-Fort Worth area. It's right outside of them. Okay. And she started out with just 6, and it's on YouTube. And there were 6 at the first meeting of them, and they were all girls. And but she says in an interview with a news outlet that they're tripled, which would make it about 18 to 20. Okay, they meet 2 times a month, and they some of the books they have trouble getting because they're banned. So some people have been donating books to their club, their banned books clubs. And if you go to her site or banned book clubs, it'll tell you how to start a banned book club on your campus, on your high school campus. And here in California, especially in Petaluma, we don't really have that problem. There's a handful of MAGA heads around here, but they don't really wield that much influence here in our school districts. The Petaluma School District or the old Adobe School District, they're just, you can ignore them. I need a sip. Grape juice, but my throat is a bit raspy today. And tomorrow, Wednesday, I'm going in for cataract surgery. And I've been putting drops in my eyes for the last couple of days leading up to this. And then after the surgery, I'm going to have to keep putting these drops in my eyes for a couple of weeks. So I'm not looking forward to this. I'm not 100% certain that I'll be doing the Midnight Skeptic next week. You know, my throat's not going to be affected, but looking at my notes might be affected. So, but I will give it my all. I owe it to my thousands and thousands of listeners and viewers out there to do this. Okay, and it's good for me too. I'm doing this to, get all sorts of crap off my chest and rant, and it gets my anxieties and anger out of my system. And I don't have a lot of anger. I truly go by the Dalai Lama's quote, "Anger is the ultimate destroyer of your own peace of mind." I always believed that. I didn't put it in those words. He's a very articulate guy. And I sort of always felt that way. But then I saw his quote, and this was about 6-7 years ago. And it's just, hey, this guy believes what I believe. And wowie. And he says it a lot better than I could ever say it. Okay, where was I? Van de Grift High School, Leander Independent School District in Texas. Started with 6, now about 20. Club not allowed to borrow books from teachers from the classrooms. Okay. But anyway, good for Ella Scott. Good anti-DeSantis news. Anything that happens badly to this bloatbag junior is good news. All right. Bexar County, Texas, Sheriff Javier Salazar is first out of the gate before the Massachusetts Attorney General, Maura Healey, or U.S. Department of Justice launches an investigation into Florida Governor Ron DeSantis for breaking immigration laws, breaking all kinds of laws, just for this stupid stunt of flying a plane load of, a small plane load of Venezuelan immigrants. Refugees. They're technically refugees because they were escaping this brutal communist government in Venezuela. But anyway, the Bexar County Sheriff, Javier Salazar, he announced first, before all these other people, that he was going to launch an investigation because Ron DeSantis's plane had to go to Texas to convince a plane load of Venezuelan refugees to, go to Massachusetts. And they were promised jobs, education for their kids, free meals, housing, and blah, 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 all sorts of things. And they went to Martha's Vineyard. And my thinking on this is that Ron DeSantis was thinking to himself, well, them mere liberals are going to see what it's like to have a bunch of brown-skinned immigrants from down south of the border in their backyards. Well, we'll stick it to those libs. Well, the people of Martha's Vineyard, in fact, are quite liberal and progressive, and they reached out to these people. The high school that's there on Martha's Vineyard, their Spanish 3 or advanced placement Spanish students functioned as translators, and the people fed them and commiserated with them and accepted them into their community. Well, they've since gone on to Massachusetts mainland to this army base. I forget the name of it, but they've been put up by the state of Massachusetts. So, and it's backfiring on Ron DeSantis because, well, not only did it show the world that liberals are caring people as opposed to MAGA heads, and now Ron DeSantis is being sued. Some lawyers immigration lawyers from up in Massachusetts are starting a class action lawsuit against Florida and Ron DeSantis. By the way, he spent state money on this stunt. Anyway, but this sheriff from Texas is going to launch an investigation because technically it could be called kidnapping by deceit, not physically grabbing them and throwing them onto the plane, but just lying to them, which is what DeSantis's minions did. Okay, mucho good news. Okay, Christians could fall below 50% of the U.S. population by 2070. Well, that's pretty far away, but this is what's going to happen if recent trends continue. According to the Pew Research Center, this is not soon enough for me, for my taste. In 2020, about 64% of Americans were Christian. The religious nuns, which is quote unquote this term that lumps all people that have no particular religion, are actively atheist or agnostic, or just answer these poll questions with, well, I don't go to church and I don't particularly believe anything. Well, those people get lumped in with the nuns. But the nuns, as a category, are the fastest growing group in the United States. And the religious nuns, according to this survey, were 30% and growing. Yay! All other religions, like Jews, Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, totaled about 6%. That's not very much. Okay. Do I need to remind you that, in my opinion, all religions are misogynistic? And over in Iran right now, there's riots going on. Yay! Not that I'm in favor of people getting killed over there, but what set it off was this 22-year-old woman who did not have her hijab improperly hiding all her hair or something. She was arrested by the morality police, and they died, or she died, in their custody. And they claimed, which is BS, that she had a heart attack. Well, she was undoubtedly beaten by the religious police, the morality police, they call themselves. And her parents, when they were interviewed, said that she was perfectly healthy. She had no history of heart conditions of any kind. So anyway, that set off a wave of protesters, and it's spreading sort of around the world. Certainly it has spread throughout the country of Iran, but we've had sympathy protests here in the Bay Area, and people are, well, the women over in Iran are not only burning their hijabs, but they're cutting their hair off. I don't understand that. Is it a Islamic rule that women should wear their hair as long as possible? I'm not really up on my ridiculous Islamic beliefs. And I'm not anti-Muslim any more than I am anti any other religion. So don't send me hate mail about that. Oh, I forgot to mention that, by the way. If you have any suggestions to how I can make this show better, I don't know how that could possibly be, but if you have any suggestions, or if you dislike my opinions enough that you're going to send me hate mail or death threats, I'm eagerly awaiting my first death threat. Anyway, here's where you send them. The Midnight Skeptic at gmail.com. I'll get it. Okay. Where am I in my notes? Political rant is what I wrote down here. I plan on voting for the party that wants to give fourth graders free school lunches instead of the one that wants to force them to have their rapists' babies, which is exactly what the MAGA-head Republican Party wants. Pro-life, no exceptions. God's plan trumps everything. BS. Okay. Whew. More good news. And boy, I haven't had any really bad news on this program yet. But anyway, good news. 2 Missouri students, with the aid of the ACLU, recently filed a class action suit against the Wentzville School District for banning books containing, okay, and this is a quote, the perspective of an author or protagonist, or both, who is non-white, LGBTQ, or otherwise identifies as a minority. And the ACLU is helping with this. They're identified in the lawsuit only with their initials because, you know, if MAGA heads find out who these 2 students were, obviously they would be the subjects of death threats and bomb threats and other violence if MAGA heads could get a hold of them. On last week's show, I mentioned that this lady, and I use that word in its loosest sense, up in Massachusetts, phoned in a bomb threat to Boston Children's Hospital. Okay, why would she do that? Well, one of the things they offer, and it's not the primary reason that they're in existence, it's just one of the things that they offer, is transgender medical care. And that includes puberty blockers, it includes top surgery, it includes gender affirming surgery, which does not happen very often. Really, it is rare. I'll have more to say about that a little bit later, but she got all her underwear in knots over this. She's a true MAGA head, a hateful, fearful follower of the orange sociopathic bloat bag, that type of MAGA head. Anyway, she phoned a bomb threat into them and called the hospital workers sickos, pot calling the kettle beige. Anyway, the police, well, I guess it was the FBI that did it. Anyway, they traced her phone call back to her. She was arrested and then she's on trial now. I hope she goes away forever. Okay. The suit claims the decision to remove the books violated the students' First and 14th Amendment rights. The quote, decisive factor in the decisions to remove the banned books, such as The Bluest Eye. I have a list of the books later on in this segment by Toni Morrison, was dislike of the ideas and opinions contained in the books by policymakers, those right-wing, suit-wearing, educational, bureaucratic MAGA heads, that was my commentary, not what the suit said. School officials, community members, or a combination of all three. The books named are All Boys Aren't Blue. I'm not going to add in the authors of these. If you really, really want to find this book, just say that. All Boys Aren't Blue, Fun Home, a family tragicomic, Gabi, Gabi, a girl in pieces. My handwriting reared its ugly head again. I think this is Pieces. A Girl in Pieces. Gabi, Gabi. Okay, Heavy, an American memoir, Invisible Girl, a novel, Lawn Boy, Modern Romance, an investigation, and, of course, The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. Concerned parents. That word concerned, every time I see that word now, all sorts of red flags are raised in my head. Concerned mothers, concerned parents, concerned conservatives. They never say that, but if some group is concerned, you know that somebody's rights are going to be taken away. Okay, let me do a time check here right quick. Moving right along. Okay. Concerned parents say they, meaning the books, are not suitable for children. And The Bluest Eye contains graphic sexual violence. Well, that's the one book on this list that I read. And there's hints of sexual violence. There's no graphic description of the girl's father raping her. There is no specific scene about that, but from Toni Morrison's description, you could understand what was happening, okay? And that was like 2 paragraphs out of the entire book. And Toni Morrison won an award for this book. And, but, MAGA heads are concerned Okay. MAGA-head GOP politicians are introducing bills to, quote, reinforce the fundamental rights of parents to make decisions regarding the upbringing and control of their children. Now, this is kind of a philosophical issue. Okay, I'm going to go into this philosophical issue of parental rights in the next page. This notes I have here kind of bleed over into the next page. Okay. MAGA-head GOP politicians are introducing bills to reinforce the fundamental right of parents to make decisions regarding the upbringing and control of their children, which means that GOP MAGA-head parents think they have the right to deprive every kid of books that they think are inappropriate. An amendment to Florida's Don't Say Gay law would require teachers or administrators to, are you ready for this? Report a child's disclosure about their gender identity or sexual orientation to parents within 6 weeks. What could possibly go wrong? Okay, is a teacher or a school counselor somebody that the kids should be able to confide in if at home they feel uncomfortable confiding in their own parents? Of course. Well, MAGA heads are not going to let that happen. Teachers, if they have a kid that says, Mrs. Brown, I think that I identify as a girl. I just don't feel like a boy, and I want to grow my hair longer, and I want to start wearing girls' dresses or whatever. Within 6 weeks of that announcement, the teacher would be required by this DeSantis law to report that kid, that poor kid, to the parents. Now, ideally, a kid can trust their parents to react rationally to a confession like that. But there's enough MAGA-head parents out there that they'll say, no kid of mine is going to be one of them trannies. Start playing football and doing push-ups and or I'll take you to church and hit you over the head with the Bible and scream in your face that Jesus doesn't want you to be a girl. Jesus wants you to be a boy like you was born. That's kind of unfair. That's my imitation of a MAGA head. And they aren't all like that. Some of them are thoughtful MAGA heads. There's not a heck of a lot of difference, but anyhow. Okay. Florida Senator Rick Scott. Where do Republicans come up with these guys? Okay, Florida Senator Rick Scott, in his 11-point plan for the GOP, calls for the closure of the Department of Education and encouragement of charter schools, vouchers, and so-called school choice. Now, in the administration of the orange sociopathic bloat bag, his education secretary, Betsy DeVos, she is a fan of religious schools and private schools that teach right-wing philosophy. And she and a lot of Republicans would prefer that public schools just disappear. That's if you drill down in the addled mind of MAGA head Republicans, that's one of the things that they would like to see have happen in this country. Another sip. The GOP is ginning up fear about parents losing their rights to control what their kids read or hear discussed in the classroom. The GOP, with the Christian right behind it, long for a return to an all-powerful dad of the family, analogous to the tyrannical God who all Christians are supposed to worship and pray to. Likewise, the MAGA-head GOP is yearning for an all-powerful leader, a dear leader, like the orange sociopathic bloat bag. Okay. The influence of the evil and evangelicals on the GOP is quite clear. There is a pyramidal chart in Christian, right-wing Christian teaching with, a pyramid-like thing. God is at the pinnacle of this pyramid. Right below God is Jesus, and then right below Jesus is the Father. And now we're talking about the family, and below him is an obedient mother, and then below the obedient mother are obedient children, and ownership of these obedient children falls under the purview of Dad, who knows everything, who is inspired by God and Jesus. And that's the ideal family situation in the Christian evangelical right's thinking about how family should be. And that's one of the reasons why they're so up in arms about gay marriage and transgenderism. I mean, if you can't be satisfied with what God made you, then you don't have no right to change your gender or your sex, and they're all afraid of transgenderism. I don't want my kids to be no trannies. They're taking over everything. Okay. Again, I'm lapsing into my imitation of a MAGA head. Okay. It's a very tough philosophical question about whether a parent owns their children. The answer is no. But does a parent have responsibilities? Yes. Education is one of them. In Florida's notoriously vague "Don't Say Gay" bill, and it doesn't, I understand that the words "Don't Say Gay" is not in the bill. The bill is entitled Parental Rights in Education or something like that. Okay. In Florida's notoriously vague "Don't Say Gay" law, it mentions in separate places in the bill instruction and discussion. Okay, well, what do they want? What counts as instruction? If a lesbian female teacher is teaching, say, first grade, and she has a picture of her fiance or her wife on her desk, like teachers should be allowed to do, well, suppose a kid comes up and says, Mrs. Walker, who's that lady? And Mrs. Walker says, well, she's my wife. Is that discussion of it? That's certainly not sex education, although MAGA heads are afraid of that as well. So this has court cases written all over it. And there was a friend of mine that we and another bunch of people all get together for a coffee social. I call it coffee and socialism. And he's a local reverend, an intelligent local reverend. And he's a nice guy, but his kids are not publicly educated in a public school. And he has gripes with how good public schools are. Well, I have some gripes about that myself. It's not perfect here in California. But anyway, he said that schools shouldn't give our kids sex education or education about sexuality or anything. Well, schools don't do that. Up until I'm not sure exactly what the state education plan is for sex education, beginning at what grade? Maybe 5th or 6th. I think that would be appropriate. And if it's not done in a salacious, overly sexualized way, so teachers are not going to sit down kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd graders and say, all right, this is a man's penis, and it goes into the woman's vagina, and they grab at each other, and they sweaty move, and no, they don't do that. Although MAGA heads would have us believe that they do that. Okay. What if a parent truly believes that, like MAGA head GOPers do, that reading Ruby Bridges Goes to School is actually CRT, critical race theory? I don't want my kids exposed to that crap. And that reading it will irreparably harm their kid, make him or her feel white guilt. It doesn't do that. If a teacher, well, no teacher, upon reading anything by a black author, will say to her largely white class, now, don't you all feel guilty about there being slavery in this country? Nobody does that, although the MAGA heads would have you believe that that happens. Okay, I'm off my notes again. What if a parent truly believes that, like MAGA head GOPers do, that reading a book about a preteen or a teenager growing up trying to establish his or her identity, such as in genderqueer, they'll turn their kid gay or trans? Grooming fear, which is the word of the year in GOP circles. The MAGA head GOP dream come true would be for all gays and transgender, all LGBTQ plus people to just disappear off the face of the earth. That's what they would like to have happen. Just erase them all. That really is what the Republican MAGA heads would prefer to have happen. Another sip. Okay, what if a parent truly believes that, like many MAGA head GOPers do, reading their biology text about evolution which is a cornerstone of modern biological thinking, what if they, reading their biology texts about evolution, will destroy their faith in God and that Darwin was not the devil's spawn, which is what Christian evangelicals believe? How wrong and ignorant does a parent have to be before educators can just ignore them, ignore their efforts to remove books and not talk about various things? It's a question I posed on my Facebook announcement about this show that I'm doing right now. The one that I got a like from Tim. Okay. Okay, what about gender-affirming medical care? I mentioned that briefly, about the bomb threat to the Boston Children's Hospital. Okay, I'm going to read some excerpts of this New York Times rather lengthy article. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but more trans teens are seeking out surgery to remove breasts. Most of the transgender kids, the majority of them, are girls that just no longer want to be girls. And I don't know the cause of that. And certainly they're not only girls that don't want to be girls anymore. But in any event, I have some statistics in this article. GOP across the United States are seeking to ban all so-called gender-affirming care for minors, turning an intensely personal medical decision into a political maelstrom with significant consequences for transgender adolescents and their families. GOP MAGA heads their favorite thing is just to ban it. Ban this, ban that. Okay, and they'll say that minors, meaning under 18, shouldn't be allowed to make that kind of a decision for themselves. Well, I would trust a kindergartner to make that decision more than I would a Republican politician making that decision for them. Okay, gender-related surgeries in particular have been thrust into the spotlight. Arizona and Alabama passed laws this year making it illegal for doctors to perform gender-related surgeries on transgender patients under 18. Conservative commentators with large followings on social media have recently targeted children's hospitals, Boston's Children's Hospital, that offer gender surgeries, leading to online harassment and bomb threats. That's how the GOP MAGA heads roll. Death threats, bomb threats, hate mail. Genital surgeries in adolescents are exceedingly rare, surgeons said, but top surgeries are becoming more common. By top surgeries, that means breast removals. Okay. Much research has shown that as adults, transgender men generally benefit from top surgery. It relieves body-related distress, increases sexual satisfaction, and improved overall quality of life. A few small studies of transgender adolescents suggests that there are similar benefits in the short term. Okay, there's a lot to this article. I'm not going to read it all. There's just excerpts. Excuse me. Gender clinics in Western Europe, Canada, and the United States have reported that a majority of their adolescent patients for top surgery were seeking to transition from female to male. Statistics. Okay. Now here they're talking about a Dr. Gallagher down in Florida, a woman surgeon who performs this. Dr. Gallagher said she performed top surgeries on about 40 patients a month. Boy, that seems like a lot to me. And roughly 1 or 2 of them are under 18. Younger patients are usually at least 15, though she has operated on one 13-year-old and one 14-year-old, she said, both of whom had extreme distress about their chests. Okay, this article is rather long, but top surgery is, well, looked down upon by MAGA head Republicans, of course. MAGA head guys and Republican politicians would say, you shouldn't interfere with God's great plan. It's my God-given right to squeeze me a little titty now and then. Again, pardon the imitation of Southern MAGA head, conservative Republican, blah, 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 blah. Okay, I labeled this as show-ending good news. On a completely different topic. Composting burials. A new end-of-life choice. Not burying in a casket, not cremation, but composting. Human composting, or natural organic reduction, is a regenerative, sustainable alternative to traditional burial or cremation that transforms the body into a cubic yard of nutrient-rich soil. And that is now legal in California. I tell you, that's the way I want to go when I go. I figure I got about, 30 more years, 30 more good years left in this creaky old body of mine. So that's the way I want to go, unless they come up with something even better than that. But anyway, composting burials. Where are we? Do I have anything more that I can read? How many more minutes do I have? It's 54, so I got about 4 minutes. I don't want to... Okay, the last show I was cut off at the 58-minute thing, and I still had some ranting to do when I played my play out music. Okay, this is an article. I won't read it all, but it concerns the global criticism, local protests over woman's death. This is Iranian woman's death, the 22-year-old. This is from Dubai, United Arab Emirates. Iran faced international criticism on Tuesday over the death of a woman held by its morality police, which ignited 3 days of protests. Well, it's still going on now. This was, I cut this article out about a week ago. Whenever it was that she died at the hands of the morality police. Okay. The UN Human Rights Office called for an investigation. The United States, which is trying to revive the 2015 nuclear deal with Iran, called on the Islamic Republic to end its systematic persecution of women. Italy also condemned her death. Iran dismissed the criticism as politically motivated. Isn't everything politically motivated? Okay. Separately, an Iranian official said 3 people had been killed by unnamed armed groups in the Kurdish region. About 10% of the population in Iran, especially up in the northwestern corner of Iran, are actually Kurds. I did a paper and a report on the Kurdish people back when a long time ago, when I was a history major back in college. And I wish that they would be granted their own contiguous country. There's, in the north of Syria, there's a Kurdish population that is semi-autonomous from the government of Syria. And in Iraq, there's a pretty much an autonomous area of Kurds, and Erbil is their capital. And Erbil International Airport is, it's a thriving country. And then bleeding over into Iranian national space is another Kurdish enclave. And if you could unite all 3 of those areas, plus some Kurdish areas up in the Armenia and Azerbaijani area, they would be quite a sizable population. They're the largest contiguous ethnic group that does not have its own country. So I wish, I sympathize with them, and I wish that they would be granted somehow their own contiguous country. Okay, that's it. Play out music. Coming up. You have been listening to The Midnight Skeptic on KPCA LP, Petaluma, California. And we're at 103.3 on the FM dial and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. Support community radio at patreon.com/Petaluma Community Access. And remember, think critically, think logically, but live joyously, and most importantly, pet your cats. Okay, so I will do this again, and I'm going to keep doing it until I get it right. The first week in October, and that will be broadcast on KPCALP on the 9th of October. And the YouTube part of this, I don't know when I'll do it, but it'll be done, October 4th or 5th, somewhere in there, if I can see what I'm doing. Not that that really helps anything, but, I gotta see you next week, I hope. Bye-bye.